Let Grayson, a not-for-profit group that helps families grieving the death of their child. And our guest is Gabby Gouveia, co-founder of Let Grayson. Gabby works at Straub Hospital, 24-year career in nursing as of 2024, which includes working in the ICU or intensive care unit. Puts her in a position to understand medical terms, administering medicines and dosages. She also teaches twice weekly yoga classes with Core Power Yoga. Through their experiences, your experiences, Let Grayson was born, a tangible space for grieving families of children who've died, a place to safely explore their emotions and other life skills. This is Hawaii Matters, and I'm your host, Kathy with a K. Welcome, Gabby Gouveia of Let Grace In.
Thank you, Kathy. Pleasure to be here.
And I love the hearts. I'm going to bring up the significance of hearts in your life and everyone's life. I'm getting chicken skin, just like we're going to get to it. So, Gabby, with Let Grace In, how do you grieve for a loved one?
Yeah, grief is such a unique experience for every individual. And I've learned that it really matters how you come into the situation, your personality, who you are, as all the roles you play in your life. I grieve one day at a time, and I've learned to just take it and integrate it into my life in a way where I'm able to feel the feelings that come up and acknowledge them, not be so afraid to be sad. I feel like society doesn't really encourage us to feel the whole spectrum of feelings, that there's some fear around, well, if she looks sad, I have to make her happy. Or if you feel sad, that's not the right emotion to feel. So I've really learned to embrace the entire spectrum and learn that grief is actually the flip side of love. And so when I grieve and I acknowledge those things, I'm loving as a whole person, acknowledging the whole spectrum of emotion and the whole human experience. So it's really taught me just to be more human, and to love more.
Let Grayson is an active or action-oriented network of families who have been living their lives after the death of a child. The word disorienting came to my mind. What kind of support was made available to you and your family as you navigated the hospital system? And you had mentioned it's been 9 years since Grayson has physically left us. But early on, even as a nurse, with your 15 years of experience up to that point, being with families, with children of varying degrees of illness, to be in the position now where it's your own child, you and your husband, the immediacy of that.
Yeah, it's really a completely different experience. So my adult ICU experience at the hospital helped me understand death in a new way because I had companioned other families and their loved one through the death and dying process. And you really aren't prepared for that. I started nursing, really young, 22 years old, and just learning about life. And you never really get a chance to companion anyone normally unless it's your family member in the death and dying process. And I got to just witness firsthand all the different aspects, emotional parts of it, physical parts of it, and, get to know death in a different way. I think that experience definitely helped me understand the kind of death that I wanted for Grayson. And I know that sounds hard to understand, but it's just about comfort and quality of life and not prolonging suffering, because at the end, every result was the same. And so having so much time to metabolize and process and understand that from the nursing perspective really helped me. You asked what kind of resources that we had. So Kapiolani Hospital is where Grayson was at, and there's social work and even the oncology team, our physician, the nurses, the physical therapy team. Wendy Hirsch, at that time now, she's Wendy Major. She had Tucker when Grayson first got sick. So he was Kapiolani's therapy dog. And Grayson had a really close relationship with him. And she actually was my therapist because I reached out for someone to process with and be with throughout the entire, journey that we were on with Grayson. And that actually really helped tremendously, more than I realized.
Do you think it was because of your own personal nursing experience that you understood that this is a lot for me to be tackling on my own? Or is that something that the nurses and the doctors and the medical team dedicated to your son, Grayson, suggested to you?
Oh no, I had asked for her services myself, and I wasn't afraid of going to therapy. I didn't feel like it labeled me as there was something wrong with me. I just acknowledged that processing with a stranger. She was a stranger at the time. Of course, we ended up developing a relationship, right? Sharing such vulnerable things. But I wasn't afraid to use that resource as a way to help me get through, which is obviously the most stressful, the most painful, the most activating situation emotionally that you can think of. And I think it was a personal choice to have that outlet to process, and it really helped me a lot because Grayson was still very functional, going to school at kindergarten. He had just graduated preschool for a while, and so as different seasons in his journey came up, I was able to talk them out with her and discuss, and I didn't really have to worry about her feelings. You know, if I was talking to Ka'eo, I would have to be monitoring what I say and how he feels. And as someone who's a non-family member whose job it is to listen, witness, and help me process, then it was a lot easier to really be vulnerable and to really share from the deepest part of me, like honestly how I felt, without her having to, you know, worry about me in a non-professional way.
This is Hawaii Matters. You just heard from Gabby Gouveia of the nonprofit Let Grace In that works with families and also the siblings of a child that has died. Grief is a relatively new and out in the open topic that we're lucky enough to experience firsthand because grief is, as Gabby had said, is the other side of love. Grief, I've read so many different ways of how grief is where it's that realization that the love or the dreams or all these things you might have imagined inside quietly or out in the open, it's unrealized. It's not, we don't know what to do now with all this love that you've been saving up. My name's Kathy with a K, and Let Grace In. It's an active, action-oriented network of families who are living their lives after the death of a child. Can we talk about Grayson a bit? Because like when I think of like Father's Day and Mother's Day and during the holidays, previous conversations I've had with you, Gabby, it's just like Grayson's very much here. It's just physically not here. And yeah, how do you see Grayson at all times of the day, you know?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's about continuing that bond. I think that, you know, when people are physically here, especially your children, you know, they're dependent on you at those young ages. So you're with them constantly and they're always connected to you. You know, moving through that journey of all the way through his death after cancer, it's hard, it's rough. It's one of those like deep guttural pains that can really take you out, you know, like sometimes it feels insurvivable, and trying to figure out what to do and where to go is hard. And that transition really took so much like inner work. And now I realize for myself, it's soul work, spiritual work. And I feel like we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and so that helps me put into perspective the journey, because I really have had to find a way to grow and expand spiritually, emotionally, throughout all of this, and so continuing my relationship with him is that top priority, right? When he's gone, you're trying to figure out, well, if there's no physical connection anymore, how do I stay connected? And I believe that we never actually really disappear and go away. That even in quantum physics, they mentioned about how energy transforms. And so there's a transition for sure. And wrapping your mind around that realm, or being able to connect to somebody who's died in spirit is a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of curiosity and work and digging and quieting down. And I feel like unburdening my own self of things that prevent me from being able to be in touch spiritually with him. But he has sent signs of hearts all the time since, you know, he died. And at first I didn't recognize it, but it's the last 8 years, I feel like I find the heart almost every single day. My children recognize it now, and it's just kind of something that's been integrated into our lives. So Grayson can be a topic on any day of the week in our home. Our children know that they have free reign to share and talk about him, whatever the feelings are, and that we've kind of like integrated him into our family, even though his physical presence isn't here. And he definitely left a lot of wisdom, especially those like last couple of weeks before he died. I feel like he was really connected to that source of unconditional love. And he was a vessel for like this wisdom that came out. Before he died, his last words were, "Don't worry." And as the years have gone by, I realized that he was trying to tell me not to fear doing the work on myself, not to fear grief, not to fear feeling and being human, not to fear, you know, what was in the road ahead, even when it felt like so dark and so heavy and so painful, the worst ever. Somehow he needed to like express that notion of being fearless, or to just show up with what you got and do the next thing. That's it, you know, one breath at a time. So his wisdom stays with me always.
You're listening to Hawaii Matters. I'm Kathy with a K, with our guest from Let Grace In, Gabby Gouveia. Grayson, pretty amazing, pretty sharp, funny kid. He lived a very full 6 years, and Let Grayson has, or letgrayson.org has a lot of resources for families and friends and children who are missing their siblings. Actually, you, Gabby, talk a little bit about your immediate family and how you and your husband, and now your two daughters, how you talk about Grayson every so often when his birthday comes up and his transition day and that kind of thing, to just give an idea. It's not for everyone how you and your family approach the grieving process, but it's a good kind of outline or idea for those who want to understand and want to help. One of the words I had was how to be respectful and be respectful of boundaries, you know, for other people.
Yeah, so my husband, Ka'eo, and I have two daughters. So Olivia is now 11. She was 3 when Grayson died. And Charlie, who wasn't born yet, she was actually born the same year as Grayson died, which was like a complete miracle, unplanned miracle. And in our family, we talk about Grayson all the time, freely and openly. And I know that people often worry about like what to say or how to be or how to conduct a conversation with a child. And as an adult nurse and a mom always learning, it was hard for me to understand that too. But there's so many valuable resources and people and volunteers that I have come into touch with, listened to podcasts on, read books about. And for me, the gist of it is to just be simple and honest. You know, when you talk about death, don't say, oh, he went to sleep or he passed away, because maybe that's not specific enough for a child who can't grasp. And it really depends on the emotional age of the child, the chronological age of the child as well. But we always were open and honest with Olivia. And she did play therapy and art therapy for a year after Grayson died. And it just really allowed me to witness professionals talking and acknowledging feelings and, you know, oh, you had a plan, or wow, I saw that really made you sad or excited. Can you tell me more about that? And I think that children having an opportunity to express honestly is a great way to start. So if you don't know where to start, you can ask them. So, you know, something was really hard, or it's Grayson's death anniversary. Like, what kind of questions do you have about that? Or, you know, what do you know about death? And like, what I realized that I didn't know before was that at each level of a child's growth, they understand death in a new way. And so they may re-grieve. And I thought it was maybe a regression or like something that was happening to Olivia. But actually what I learned was now that she was older and death was a concept she really understood more than when she was at 3. Now she had a chance to grieve in this new way, and that we could just love and support her where she is. She was able to process and feel and acknowledge, and then she was okay. It didn't last forever. So these are the things about companioning other families I like to share, because I was in the dark about so much. And I feel like if you've lived it and you have maybe something that might help someone else like process and understand, oh, that's normal. That is not something wrong with your child. Then I feel like, wow, maybe I have done a little bit, right? I've given a measure of comfort in some way to someone that I like, that pain resonates with me so deeply. That's really a lot of why we have Let Grayson, and we're a peer community.
Can you talk about the Let Grace In monthly therapeutic events? And then a little bit about the annual event that happens in October for Let Grace In.
Yeah, I would love to. So we do monthly therapeutic events. So every month we give an opportunity to families to come together in community. So a big part of normalizing and being witnessed and being able to express your grief is being in community. And so having other parents and siblings who understand more than most people, even your friends and family, sometimes because they haven't had the experience, does give comfort. So we offer community building relationships so people can see each other every month if they want to, or, and we also offer, in addition to sharing, we offer a therapeutic event. So it's always different. So this month we had just a men's event, a barbershop event where the men came in, got their hair cut, their beard trimmed, they get to eat good food, and then they get to be amongst one another and share. And so we have events that are just for moms, just for dads, and then also for the whole family and just for kids. In October, we have our Hope Retreat. And so that's at Mokuleia, 4 days, 3 nights. And we do a lot more of the grief work. But we do a lot of tool teaching so people can figure out what it feels like to calm their nervous system, and then to even be able to think about or begin to process the emotion, because sometimes we're revving on high and we're all stressed out and we just can't do any kind of healing in that state. So we have a lot of experiential holistic events, and they're all based in research and culture and our own experience as well. So we invite families into an extended period of time right on the beach and with one another to, process and calm and just unplug. And then do the grief work that feels right for them as we companion them in that journey.
We're talking with Gabby Gouveia of letgracein.org, a collective of persons to recognize that it's normal to have all the emotions one at a time, intensely, faintly. You're being human, and grief is on this level when you lose a child, your child dies, your order, the chronological order of how you understood it to be, that as a parent you would be assisting your child at various stages of their growth and also your growth. And what does that mean as a parent? Because you're always, Gabby, you're a forever mom, and Ka'eo is going to be a forever dad to Grayson. And that's beautiful to share that knowledge with other families. And some people, they're not ready yet to join Let Grace In. So just to know that there are resources available on the website. I'm Kathy with a K, Hawaii Matters. When did volunteering to be available for grieving families whose child had passed become your calling?
I think that this was a calling because it wasn't anything that was planned. I had went to school to be a nurse, and I feel like as I've just walked my own journey, it's just been a natural progression. I do feel like I can use my gifts and talents to companion others in this way. And when things started just coming together, well, let's just get a bunch of grieving parents an invitation to have breakfast, and then that happened. And there was more provision for more events and people on our team who volunteered who were like just the exact right, perfect match to companion families. I feel like that was just an acknowledgement and an encouragement to keep going. And it continues to be that way now. You know, I feel like we're partnered with heaven, which is so cool because Grayson's there with all these other children and every maybe ancestor that's there supporting us. And we're just led down this path, and intuitively it just feels like love, more love. And I just feel like that honors Grayson's life more than if I checked out. And sometimes that's just the way it is, and it's temporary, and nothing's right or wrong. But for me, in my calling, I just felt like maybe it is something that I am being called to do in my life. And like, it's really helped me to build courage and see a different side of myself and grow in a spiritual way. So
Hawaii Matters. We're here with Gabby Gouveia of Let Grace In, letgracein.org. My name's Kathy with a K. I just really admired you and your husband turning that want to have Grayson in your life, and he's always there, and being able to find a channel to use that energy to help other people. So many times, the feelings and the questions that arise just in any situation, in any kind of purpose, people don't know what to do with it, and you're able to find a creative, helpful way to connect with other families, like a lighthouse. I love the thinking that, you know, the shores nearby, or just feeling adrift, literally, and knowing that there are people who are on shore. They're here for you. Sometimes it's like, we don't have the answers, but we're here with you without the answers. I think that's the beauty of Let Grace In. Yeah. The name Let Grace In, can you share the story of that? Even though it might seem like really obvious, it's like, of course, Grayson Goveia. It's like in his honor and tribute. Gabby, can you
Sure.
give some insight to Let Grace In?
Yeah, you know, it's hard to name an organization. Actually, I can't take credit for it. So the chaplain at Kapiolani was a high school classmate of ours, Joshua Almanza. And so we were in the parking lot one day. Both our kids went to the same preschool next door. And he's like, let Grace in. And like you said, it honors Grayson's name too. And, you know, grace is like love, that unmerited love from God. Like, it may not feel like we deserve it, but when you know, touch, and feel that perfect, unconditional love of God, like, there's nothing like that. And how can we be a vessel of just that love to surround others, you know, to give them time and space to heal in their own way, in a unique and individual way, to express whatever it is they need, wherever they are, in whatever season they're in, and bring the entire family, because it's a generational burden. You know, we're all in it. We're all feeling it. And the wider community too. And then maybe that love can then expand further into community, into the world.
Hawaii Matters. My name's Kathy with a K. I'm sitting with Gabby Gouveia of Let Grace In. There are ways that this nonprofit organization is out in the community, and maybe you want to volunteer monetarily, find out ways that maybe you have a venue, maybe you have ideas, partnerships. They do welcome donations to continue the growth and healing of hearts within families living with grief, which is key to understand. It's like, it's an ongoing process that comes in different orders. And some days, not that you ever forget a loved one, your child being with you physically, just the day, but understanding that Let Grayson wants to help you, and you inevitably will help others by sharing. Is there just any one way to introduce the conversation with a child about their own illness and their own inevitable dying. How was that conversation like with Grayson?
Yeah, luckily in the hospital you have child life specialists, oncologists, other people who are trained professionals to help guide that conversation. And so our child life specialists were amazing. So they came in and they brought toys and they bring kid friendly activities, and they kind of showed how one cell kind of grows out of control, and then that this ball, it was like one of those like sticky foam ball structures that he got to play with and touch and hold, and they speak very matter-of-factly, and they explain very simply according to his age, and he was able to understand better what was happening to him. And so throughout our journey, I've always really tried to witness and to be there to try to grasp some of those same types of phrases, the energy they use when they speak, the calmness, the matter-of-factness. And I think that that's a great place to start, you know, you always need to address your own emotions and your own place in it yourself. And I think that's a lot of times what prevents us from really speaking candidly or honestly with our children. The world puts all these layers of things of fear and maybe shame and things that are on top of subjects, especially around death, dying. And if we make it scary, then they feel scared. Yeah. But if we let him, when we let him know, you know, this is what's happening in your body and this is what the medication is doing and this is why we need to do these things, then he was able to go and then explain and share. And so we'd go to like our church camp, and the leader, who's like probably 20 years old, he was like, oh my God, Grayson told me he has brain cancer and about his tumor, and oh my God, you know, and he's overwhelmed. And they were like so impressed that he was able to just share with them as a matter of fact. I think grief is the same way. So our daughter was 3 years old when Grayson died, and we always included her, and she was always along on the journey with us and witnessed everything. And we always tried to explain to her the best that we could about death and how Grayson's body didn't work anymore and what we believed about his spirit. And then she was able to kind of share with others. And sometimes people would be like, oh my God, this 3-year-old is like, my brother died of brain cancer and he's not here, but you know, we love and remember him. He's in our hearts. And so I think that's a good start.
That's the challenge is if the person, the parent, is not comfortable with what does death mean for myself, then that's the challenge, right? It's the nursing and the background of it. Has it made you, do you think, a better medical professional?
Oh, for sure. A better human, you know, and that translates everywhere. And I think the more that I dug into the things that I needed to heal in myself, starting with grief, it uncovered like Pandora's box. You know, we have childhood wounds and old relationship wounds and things we don't even know we're carrying in our bodies anymore. And to be able to address those things and want to feel and process and release those things has really helped me, I think, just be a better human. And the work is never done, right? Yeah. You've always got work to do. So I always make mistakes. I'm never perfect. I'm practicing regulating my own emotions with my 7-year-old, parallel processing on a daily basis, right? But it's that willingness to go there and that willingness to say, like, I got to do the work on myself. And so I think that's the answer for all questions that I have about life. Do I want to be a better nurse? Do I want to be a better wife, a better mom, a better friend? Then keep working on myself.
LetGraceIn.org. We're talking with Gabby Gouveia, co-founder of Let Grace In, with her husband, Ka'eo Goveia. I'm Kathy with a K. This is Hawaii Matters. What was your original mission for Let Grace In, and where do you see it evolving to or into?
Yeah, our mission is to restore hope. That's always been the mission from the beginning. We've found our way in building community and offering holistic which means mind, body, spirit, the entire person, like experiential activities for people to really get into your whole self, because grief really affects the whole person. And I feel like our goal is to have a brick and mortar healing center for us to offer modalities to the greater community, and for us to have ongoing sustainable activities and to develop a place of healing through all of these holistic modalities that address the entire person. And we've started to expand to the neighbor islands with our Hope Retreat last year. So we partnered with Molokai Community Health Center, and then this year we'll be in Maui in the end of July with partners there on Maui. And that feels like the beginning of this expansion towards, expanding to give access to as many people that need our services.
Let Grayson. We have Gabby Gouveia. I'm Kathy with the K with Hawaii Matters. Let Grayson wants families to be able to talk about, remember, and continue to love their child, however way they feel is right. Would you like to acknowledge your various partners and supporters of Let Grayson?
Yeah, sure. So we've had a tremendous, beautiful, amazing volunteer team that is a group of professionals that offer these holistic activities. And without them, our programs would not exist and they would not be as rich as they are. Also, big supporters, especially this year, Dr. Tom Kosasa is one of our big supporters, Pacific Comtech, and the Gift Foundation this year that helped us expand funding for Neighbor Island retreats as well. And so we are always partnering with subject experts, other nonprofits like Nakekio Emily on Maui, who's helped us now for 2 retreats to support the children's grief-facilitated activities. So they bring their expertise in to partner and help, and Experience Camps as well, which is a national organization on Maui, is another one of our partners. Great community here.
Thank you for having Hawaii Matters with you today. My name's Kathy with a K, and our guest is Gabby Gouveia of Let Grayson. Let Grayson was created out of the love that Gabby and her husband, Ka'eo Goveia, and their family have for their son, Grayson, who died as a result of a brain tumor he had. I was 6 years old before he turned 6.
Almost 2 months before his birthday, yes.
As kids would say, 5 years and X amount months.
That's right.
It's an invisible stress of loving and caring for a terminally ill child, and that can manifest itself, as you were saying earlier, in other areas of the family's life, for the mother, the father, the siblings, and the extended community of that family. It's so complicated, just being a solo individual, having your experience, let alone as a mom, and having to also be a wife, and for your husband to be a husband, head a household. It's just like it shifts. Everything is constantly shifting. And even now, almost 9 years later after Grayson has died, and this is why Let Grayson is so handy, because you're never that same person, because experience is always coloring the way you are day to day. Was it scary? Was it scary to decide to create this foundation?
Yeah, it's been a journey. I don't think I ever remember being scared, but there are so many elements that I've had to learn. It's been a process. It's like growing up, right? Like when we first started, it was just an idea and we didn't even know what it could be. And it was just a matter of figuring out like what was it we were meant to do that we were supposed to do. And we didn't want to duplicate any services that already existed in the community, but we knew that there was a gap. There was lacking services for families who've lost a child. And that some people do resonate in a broader grief group where people have lost different, members of their family, but that this loss of a child was something very specific. And it's actually something you don't really hear people talk about in the community because it's such a vulnerable, private, painful experience. you don't actually know how many people who have lost a child who had a stillbirth. And I think that's like that in general, right? We never really reveal these things to one another. But it was a space where people could come knowing that there was going to be other families who have lost a child and different experiences. So for us, we went through cancer, brain cancer, and an incurable diagnosis from the very beginning, 9 months of battling. But there are families who, child has died by an accident, by suicide, by murder. So there are so many varying degrees of intensity and experience that losing a child was something that we knew that we had experienced and that we wanted to just be a light and love somehow in the community for other families like ours. The scary part, I think, is just that when you realize like, well, let's develop a policy and procedure of something, or like, this is why an organization has these types of guidelines. And as you grow developing those kinds of things, being grassroots, it wasn't like we, had this idea to build this nonprofit and this foundation. So the growing pains have been uncomfortable along the way, but it started off with just a pure love and bringing people together who really were trying to be a vessel of love and to create a space, a safe space for families to come and feel that love through all these modalities and teaching. And then to leave with some tools, maybe something resonated with them that they'll be able to carry on, or at least the tool of community where they can come back to feel that safe, loving environment again amongst other families. So there's lots of work to be done all the time.
Hawaii Matters. I'm Kathy with a K here with Gabby Gouveia. Let Grace In. And you can support Let Grace In online, letgracein.org. Families can sign up for invitations to all Let Grace In events and retreats, as well as receive a grief care package. You can watch videos of family testimonials, explore their 3 main programs, and even purchase the children's book, if we can talk about that. My Journey with the Wind, A Magical Story About Grief. It was written by Ashley Wolf and illustrated by Yasmin Jessen. When I was typing my notes, I'm like, I know I'm going to stumble over her last name. You can also donate by clicking the donate button to directly impact the Let Grace and Ohana grieving their child. My Journey with the Wind, how did that book come about and become affiliated with Let Grayson, or was it during a therapeutic event that someone came up with this book?
It was actually one of our families. So she was looking for more resources for her daughter who had a dying brother. And she is part of our Let Grace In Ohana now. But she reached out and said, can you create a resource that doesn't exist out there? And so our team got together and it was a collaborative effort for us to create a resource. The unique part about it is that it's a story about a grieving sibling, but then it also has activities at the end. So any parent, any caregiver, a teacher can read the story and then engage in the therapeutic activities. And our practitioners were like, well, how would I use this book with a child if I was seeing them in art therapy, in a session, for as a grieving child. And then that's how the activity pages at the end came about. So it's a resource beyond just the story. It's like something action oriented that you can do at the end, discussions you can have, and prompts that will allow in more open conversation, right? Because like me, I didn't feel like I had the tools as a grieving parent alone to support Olivia when Grayson died. And I didn't really feel like I had all the therapeutic words and ways to, talk about it. So this is a good start for families and a resource that we give everyone when they sign up as a family with Let Grayson.
Like you said, it's so many, it doesn't matter how many seasons or years go by, it's always a work in progress. And you need to, that's the tough part. You have to choose to let the love in, let grace in. Gabby Gouveia, let grace in, letgracein.org. Thank you to our guest, Gabby Gouveia. To replay or share this episode, please search Hawaii Matters on most streaming platforms for Pacific Media Group and Hawaii Matters. I'm Kathy with a K. Mahalo.
Thanks, Kathy.